The transport ship docked at Station Helix 9 with a low hum, stood near the window, watching the massive space station grow larger. His 4 arms were crossed over his chest, and his green scales caught the light from distant stars. Today was the first day of his training at the Galactic Military Academy. Today, he would show everyone why they were the greatest warriors in the galaxy. Around him, other cadets talked loudly about their plans. They would dominate the rankings. They would prove their worth. Said nothing. He preferred to let his actions speak. The airlock opened, and hundreds of cadets from dozens of species poured into the station's main hall, saw creatures of every shape and size. There were tall, thin beings with too many eyes. There were small, round creatures that rolled instead of walked. There were with clicking mandibles and furry mammals with sharp teeth. And there were humans. Had heard about humans. They were newcomers to the Galactic Union, having joined only 80 years ago, a blink of an eye in galactic terms. They were soft, small, and lacked any natural weapons. No claws, no scales, no venom. Wondered how they had survived long enough to reach the stars. A elder had once told him that humans came from a dangerous planet. They called it, but did not believe it. Looking at them now, with their smooth skin and thin limbs, he could not imagine them surviving anything truly dangerous. The orientation ceremony was long and boring. Commander, a human female with short black hair and cold eyes, explained the rules of the academy. She spoke about honor, discipline, and respect. Noticed that many alien cadets watched her with something like fear. Strange. She was just a human. After the ceremony, cadets were sent to their assigned quarters, shared a room with 2 others. They immediately began planning how to establish dominance over the other species. "We should challenge the strongest fighters first," one of them said. "Show everyone that are supreme." "No," replied. "We start with the weak ones. Quick victories build reputation, then we move up." His roommates agreed. It was a solid strategy. That evening went to the mess hall. The room was massive, filled with tables designed for different body types. The smell of 100 different foods mixed in the recycled air. Grabbed a tray of raw meat, the traditional meal, and looked for a place to sit. That was when he saw her. She was sitting alone at a small table near the corner, a human female, smaller than most of her kind. She had long black hair tied behind her head and a round, soft face. She was eating something white and sticky with 2 thin sticks. Her movements were slow and careful, almost peaceful. Felt a smile spread across his face. Perfect. He walked toward her table, letting his heavy footsteps announce his presence. The human did not look up. She continued eating as if she had not noticed him. "You," said, standing over her, "human." She looked up. Her eyes were dark brown, almost black. There was no fear in them, just calm. "Yes," she said. Her voice was soft and quiet. I will be the top warrior at this academy. Remember my name." The human blinked slowly. "Okay," she said. Then she returned to her food. Felt his scales flush with heat. She had dismissed him. A tiny, soft creature had dismissed a warrior. Around them, other cadets were watching. Some were whispering. "What is your name, human?" demanded. She said without looking up. "I will remember it. When I defeat you in combat, I want to know whose pride I have crushed." Paused. She set down her eating sticks and looked at him again. For a moment, something flickered in her eyes. It was gone too fast for her to identify. "Okay," she said again. Then she picked up her sticks and continued eating. Turned and walked away, his blood boiling. The other were grinning when he sat down with them. "Easy target," one said. "She looks like she would break if you breathed on her too hard." "She will be my first victory," agreed. But as he ate, he noticed something strange. A cadet, one of the intelligent, was watching him from across the room. When met his eyes, they made a strange clicking sound. It took a moment to recognize it. Laughter. Later that night, was walking back to his quarters when he passed a group of cadets from different species. They were talking in low voices, but hearing was sharp. "Did you see the bothering that human girl?" one said. "The small one," another replied. "Yes, he has no idea what he is getting into." "Should we warn him?" "No, let him learn the hard way. It will be funnier." More laughter. Steps slowed. "Humans are strange," a third voice said. "They look weak, but they come from a world that tried to kill them every day. Their bodies are designed for endurance, not strength. They can chase prey until it dies from exhaustion." "I heard they have a thing called adrenaline," the first voice added. "It makes them stronger and faster when they are scared or angry, like a temporary mutation." "And that girl specifically," the second voice said. "I looked up her file. She grew up on a colony world. One of the bad ones. Predators, extreme weather, everything. If that thinks she is weak because she is small and quiet." The voices faded as the group walked away. Stood in the dark hallway thinking. Then he shook his head. Rumors, exaggerations. Humans like to make themselves sound more impressive than they were. Was small and soft and quiet. She would fall like all the others. He was sure of it. 1 week passed at the academy, watched and learned. He observed the different species, studied their movements, and noted their weaknesses. The dominated most physical exercises, just as he had expected. Their forearms gave them an advantage in climbing and lifting. Their scales protected them from minor injuries. Their warrior culture had prepared them well. But the humans were strange. They did not win the strength competitions. They did not win the speed competitions, but they never stopped. In endurance runs, humans would keep going long after other species had collapsed. In problem-solving exercises, they found solutions that no one else had considered. And in the combat simulations, they fought with a creativity that made uncomfortable. Still, he reminded himself that simulations were not real fights. When the time came for actual combat, size and strength would matter, and was small. He had watched her during the week. She trained alone most mornings, doing slow, flowing movements that looked more like dancing than fighting. She ate her meals quietly, sometimes joined by a tall human male named. She spoke little and smiled less. Some cadets thought she was shy. Others thought she was cold. Thought she was prey. On the 7th day, he decided it was time. The common training ground was crowded with cadets from many species. Some were practicing combat moves. Others were lifting weights or running on tracks. It was the perfect place for a public display. Walked through the crowd until he found. She was sitting on a bench, drinking water from a bottle. Was beside her, reading something on a data pad. "Human," called out loudly. Conversations around them stopped. Heads turned. She looked up at him with those calm, dark eyes. "Yes. I challenge you to a sparring match. Tomorrow in the combat arena. Standard rules." Whispers spread through the crowd like fire. A challenging a human. A warrior challenging what looked like a child. Some cadets laughed. Others shook their heads. A few looked worried. Set down his data pad and stood up. He was tall for a human, with broad shoulders and a serious face. "She does not have to accept," he said. His voice was calm but firm. "There is no honor in challenging someone half your size." Laughed. "Honor. I am offering her a chance to prove herself, unless she is too afraid." "I am not afraid," said quietly. Everyone looked at her. She had not moved from the bench. Her water bottle was still in her hand. She looked as relaxed as if they were discussing the weather. "Then you accept?" asked. Looked at. Something passed between them, a silent conversation that could not read. His jaw tightened, but he stepped back. Stood up. She was so small that the top of her head barely reached his chest. She bowed, a strange human gesture that bent her body at the waist. "I accept your challenge," she said. "Tomorrow combat arena, standard rules." Grinned, showing all his teeth. "Good. Try not to disappoint me too quickly." He turned and walked away, feeling the eyes of dozens of cadets on his back. This was perfect. By tomorrow evening, everyone would know the name. Everyone would know that we're superior. Behind him, he heard his voice, low and urgent. "You do not have to do this. He is twice your size. He has 4 arms." "I know," replied. Her voice was still calm. "That is his problem, not mine." Almost stopped walking. What did that mean? But he shook off the confusion and kept moving. She was trying to sound confident. It would not help her tomorrow. That night the academy buzzed with excitement. A formal challenge had been issued and accepted. Cadets placed bets on the outcome. Most bet on, of course. The odds were overwhelming. But a few cadets bet on. The who had laughed at in the mess hall put down a large sum on the human girl. When other cadets asked him why, he simply clicked his mandibles in amusement. "I have seen humans fight before," he said. "The small ones are often the most dangerous. They have learned to use everything except strength." "But she is tiny," someone protested. "She cannot possibly beat a—" "We shall see," they replied. "We shall see." In her quarters that night, prepared. She did not lift weights or practice punches. Instead, she sat on the floor with her eyes closed, breathing slowly and deeply. Her mind moved through memories of training, years of training, a lifetime of learning how to fight things bigger than herself. On her colony world, everything had been bigger than her. The predators that hunted at night, the storms that could tear buildings apart, the other colonists who sometimes fought over food and water. She had learned early that size meant nothing if you knew where to strike. Visited her before lights out. He stood in her doorway, his face worried. "You know what you are doing?" he asked. "Yes." "He will come at you hard and fast. Believe in overwhelming force." "I know. 4 arms means 4 points of attack. Or 4 points of vulnerability." Opened her eyes and looked at her friend. "I will be fine." He studied her face for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. "Do not hold back," he said. "He would not show you mercy." "I know," said again, "but I will show him some. He does not know what he has done. It would not be fair to break him completely." Almost smiled. "You are too kind." "Perhaps," she admitted, "but cruelty is weakness. I prefer efficiency." Left and returned to her meditation. Tomorrow, she would teach a warrior a lesson that his people had never learned. Size was not strength, and silence was not weakness. On the other side of the station was also preparing. He practiced his strikes against a training dummy, imagining it was the small human girl. His 4 fists moved in deadly patterns. He was fast. He was powerful. He was a warrior. He would crush her in seconds. Commander watched the betting boards from her office. The odds were heavily in favor of the— She shook her head slowly and smiled. These aliens never learned. They never did. The combat arena was packed. Cadets filled every seat, climbing over each other for a better view. The circular fighting pit in the center was 20 meters wide, covered in soft material that would cushion falls. Bright lights shone down from above, making the space feel like a stage. Entered first. The section of the crowd roared with approval. He raised all 4 arms in greeting, his scales shining under the lights. He was wearing his training armor, lightweight plates that protected his vital organs while allowing full movement. He looked powerful. He looked unstoppable. Then entered. She walked slowly, her bare feet silent on the floor. She had removed her boots and her jacket, leaving only her simple training clothes. Her black hair was tied back tightly. Her hands hung loose at her sides. She looked small. She looked fragile. She looked like she was walking to her own funeral. The crowd murmured. Some laughed. Others shook their heads in pity. Stepped into the fighting pit and bowed too. He did not bow back. "Last chance to surrender," he said. "I will not judge you for it. Everyone knows humans are weak." Said nothing. She simply stood there, her weight balanced evenly on both feet, her eyes fixed on his chest rather than his face. The referee, a neutral species with gray skin and no visible eyes, floated to the edge of the pit. "Standard rules," it announced in a flat voice. "The match ends when one fighter yields, loses consciousness, or is unable to continue. Lethal force is prohibited. The match begins on my signal." Dropped into his fighting stance, 4 arms raised, 4 fists ready, his muscles tensed like coiled springs. He would end this quickly. One rush, one overwhelming attack, and the human would fall. Did not take a stance. She simply stood there, relaxed, her arms still at her sides. The referee raised one gray limb. "Begin." Exploded forward. He was fast for his size, crossing the distance between them in 2 heartbeats. His upper right fist swung towards head. His lower right fist aimed for her stomach. His left arms were ready for follow-up strikes. Moved. It was not a block. It was not a dodge. It was something else entirely. Her body flowed like water, shifting just enough that his upper fist passed over her shoulder. At the same time, her hand touched his lower arm, redirecting it past her hip. His punches hit nothing but air. Stumbled, thrown off balance by his own momentum. He recovered quickly and spun around. Was standing exactly where she had been before. She had not retreated. She had not attacked. She had simply moved him past her. The crowd was silent. Attacked again, faster this time. A combination of strikes from all 4 arms, high and low, left and right. Any one of those punches could shatter bone. None of them landed. Danced through his attacks like they were moving in slow motion. She ducked under a high swing, stepped around a low kick, let a punch slide past her cheek by centimeters. Her movements were small and precise. She never wasted energy. And her eyes never left his chest. Felt something cold creep into his heart. This was wrong. She should be running. She should be afraid. Instead, she was treating his attacks like raindrops, letting them fall around her without concern. He roared in frustration and swung all 4 fists at once, putting every bit of his strength behind the attack. Dropped. Not backward, not sideways, but straight down, her legs folding beneath her. His fists passed through the space where her head had been. Before he could react, her leg swept out and caught his ankle. The floor rushed up to meet him. Crashed down hard, the air rushing from his lungs. He tried to roll to get back up, but something was wrong. His primary right arm would not move. There was a strange numbness spreading from his shoulder. Was above him now. She had moved so fast that he had not seen it. Her fingers had struck something in his arm, some nerve cluster that he did not even know existed. He swung with his other arms, desperate now, caught one wrist in both hands and twisted. Pain shot through his joint. He felt himself being turned, manipulated, his own body used against him. Then her arm was around his neck. The hold was perfect, precise. She had adjusted for his anatomy, for the different position of his blood vessels and air passages. She was not choking him. She was cutting off the blood to his brain. Tried to struggle. His 3 working arms clawed at her, but she had positioned herself where they could not reach. His legs kicked uselessly. The world began to grow dark at the edges. "Yield," said softly. Her voice was calm, almost gentle. Tried to speak, but his mouth would not work. The darkness was closing in. 47 seconds. The entire fight had lasted 47 seconds. The last thing saw before consciousness left him was the ceiling of the arena, bright lights shining down like cold stars. Then there was nothing. Held the choke for 3 more seconds just to be sure. Then she released him carefully, lowering his head to the soft floor. She checked his pulse with 2 fingers. Strong. He would wake up soon with nothing worse than a headache and wounded pride. She stood and bowed to his unconscious body, showing respect for a fallen opponent. The arena was completely silent. Hundreds of cadets stared in shock. The section looked like they had witnessed the death of a god. Then they started laughing. His clicking mandibles echoed through the silence, breaking the spell. Other cadets began to murmur, then talk, then shout. Those who had bet on cheered. Those who had bet on sat in stunned disbelief. Commander, watching from the balcony, nodded once in approval. Walked out of the arena without celebration. She did not raise her arms in victory. She did not smile or laugh. She simply walked away as if she had done nothing more interesting than take a morning stroll. Was waiting for her at the exit. He handed her a water bottle. 47 seconds, he said. You were gentle. He did not deserve cruelty, replied. Only a lesson. Do you think he learned it? Took a long drink of water. In the arena behind her, medical staff were rushing to tend to. We will see, she said. We will see. Light, bright light. Opened his eyes slowly, blinking against the harsh glow above him. His head felt like someone had filled it with sand. His body ached in places he did not know could ache. For a long moment, he could not remember where he was or what had happened. Then it all came back. The arena, the fight, the small human girl who had moved like smoke and hit like lightning, the darkness closing in around his vision. He had lost. Tried to sit up, but his body refused to cooperate. He was lying in a medical pod, the kind used for treating injuries. Sensors attached to his skin monitored his vital signs. The soft hum of healing machines filled the air. Ah, you are awake. A medical officer approached, a member of the Helix species. They were neutral beings, neither male nor female, neither large nor small. They existed to help, nothing more. How do you feel? The officer asked. Terrible, admitted. What happened to me? You lost consciousness during a sparring match. You have been asleep for approximately 2 hours. The officer checked a data screen. Your injuries are minor. Temporary nerve damage in your right primary arm, some bruising, wounded pride. Stared at the officer. Wounded pride is not a medical condition. It is when you are, the officer replied without emotion. You will recover fully within a day. The nerve function in your arm will return within 6 hours. Looked down at his right arm. He tried to move his fingers. They twitched weakly but would not close into a fist. She hit a nerve cluster, he said slowly. I did not even see her do it. Yes, the human female demonstrated precise knowledge of anatomy. Impressive, really. Did not find it impressive. He found it terrifying. I want to see the fight, he said. The recording. The medical officer hesitated, then nodded. They pressed something on a control panel, and a holographic screen appeared above Spod. The recording began to play. Watched himself enter the arena, proud and confident. He watched the small human girl enter after him, barefoot and calm. He watched himself mock her. He watched himself attack. And then he watched himself get destroyed. The recording showed everything in perfect detail. Every punch that missed. Every dodge that looked impossible. Every moment where redirected his strength against him. The nerve strike that crippled his arm took less than 1/10 of a second. He had to replay it 5 times before he could even see what she had done. The final choke was almost gentle. She had not hurt him more than necessary. She had simply put him to sleep like a mother putting a child to bed. 47 seconds. The whole fight lasted 47 seconds. Closed his eyes. His entire understanding of the universe had cracked and fallen apart. You have a visitor, the medical officer said. Opened his eyes to see the tall human male standing at the entrance to the medical bay. He was alone, his hands clasped behind his back. What do you want? Asked. His voice came out weaker than he intended. To talk, said, may I? Wanted to say no. He wanted to tell this human to leave him alone, but something stopped him. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was the need to understand what had just happened to him. Fine, he said, talk. Walked closer and sat on a medical stool beside the pod. His movements were calm and unhurried. You are probably wondering how she did it, began. How a human half your size could defeat you in less than a minute. The thought crossed my mind. Nodded, humans come from Earth. It is classified as a Class 12. Do you know what that means? I have heard the term, admitted. I did not believe it. Most species do not, until they see a human fight or run or survive something that should kill them. Leaned back slightly. On Earth, everything was trying to kill us. Predators, weather, disease, even other humans. We evolved in constant danger. Our bodies are not strong like bodies. We are not fast like some species, but we are adaptable, and we never ever give up. Said nothing, he was listening now. Over thousands of years, humans developed what we call martial arts, fighting styles. There are hundreds of them, maybe thousands, each one designed for different situations. Paused. Some are designed specifically to defeat larger and stronger opponents. They use leverage, momentum, and knowledge of anatomy to turn an enemy's strength against them. That is what she did, said quietly. She used my strength against me. Yes, studied those styles her entire life. She grew up on a colony world where survival was a daily challenge. She learned to fight before she learned to read. His voice was calm, but there was something hard beneath it. When you challenged her, you challenged someone who has been preparing for exactly that kind of fight since she was 5 years old. Process this information slowly. Why did she accept? She could have refused. She could have avoided the embarrassment to my people. She accepted because you gave her no choice. You challenged her publicly. If she had refused, you would have spread stories about human cowardice. She accepted to protect the reputation of her species. Felt something twist in his chest. Shame, real shame. I was wrong about her, he admitted. Yes. I was wrong about humans. Yes. Silence stretched between them. The medical machines hummed softly. Why did she not hurt me more? Asked finally. She could have broken my arms. She could have crushed my throat. Instead, she just put me to sleep. Smiled slightly. Because that is not who she is. Does not fight to prove dominance. She does not fight for glory or pride. She fights to end threats. Once you were unconscious, you were no longer a threat. The fight was over. Among my people, that would be seen as weakness. Among humans, it is seen as control. True strength is knowing when to stop. Stood up from the stool. The other cadets call the gentle one. She is known for her kindness and her quiet nature. She helps injured creatures and shares her food with those who have none. He walked toward the door, then paused. You challenged the kindest human at this academy, and she still defeated you in 47 seconds. Imagine what would have happened if you had challenged one of the mean ones. He left without another word. Lay in his medical pod for a long time after that, staring at the ceiling. Everything he had believed about strength and weakness was wrong. Everything he had believed about humans was wrong. The small ones were not prey. They were predators wearing the skin of prey. And he had been a fool. 3 months changed everything. Walked through the academy corridors with a purpose he had not felt before. His scales had grown duller from less time in the sun, but his mind was sharper than ever. He carried data pads under 2 of his arms and a bag of study materials under the 3rd. His 4th arm was free, always ready. The other avoided him now. They whispered behind his back about his defeat, about his shame. Some called him a traitor for what he did after the fight. Did not care. He had learned something more valuable than their approval. He had learned how wrong he had been. After leaving the medical bay, had done something no warrior had ever done. He had apologized. Not a small, private apology, but a public one. He had found in the training grounds and bowed to her, using the gesture of respect for a superior warrior. The crowd had gasped. Some had looked away in disgust. Had looked surprised, then confused. You do not need to do that, she had said. Yes, I do, had replied. I was arrogant and foolish. I judged you by your size and your silence. I was wrong. You are a true warrior and I disrespected you. That apology had cost him his standing among his people, but it had gained him something far more valuable. Friends had accepted his apology with a small bow of her own, had watched with guarded eyes but eventually nodded in acceptance. Over the following weeks, had joined their study group. He had learned about human history, human culture, human fighting styles. He had learned about their strange concepts like humor and sarcasm and pizza. He had learned that humans were not weak. They were terrifyingly strong in ways that scales and claws could never match. Now, 3 months later, considered himself an honorary member of their small group. They ate meals together. They studied together. They trained together. The other aliens at the academy still gave them strange looks, but had stopped caring about looks long ago. Today was different. Today there was an emergency. The alarm had sounded during afternoon training. A simulation chamber had malfunctioned. The walls were collapsing, and 12 cadets were trapped inside. Emergency crews were on their way, but the structure was unstable. Every second mattered. Ran toward the chaos alongside, and other cadets were running away from the danger. The humans ran toward it. That was another thing he had learned about them. They ran toward danger, not away from it. It was insane. It was also inspiring. The simulation chamber was in ruins. Dust filled the air. Sparks flew from damaged electronics. Through the haze could hear voices crying for help. Commander was already there, directing rescue efforts. Her face was grim but focused. "The main entrance is blocked," she reported. "We need to find another way in." Was already moving. She found a narrow gap in the rubble, too small for most species to fit through. Without hesitation, she squeezed into the darkness. He called. "I can fit," her voice echoed back. "I will find them." And worked to clear the rubble while disappeared into the wreckage. Minutes passed like hours. The structure groaned and shifted. More debris fell. Then's voice came through the communication channel. "I found them, 12 cadets. Some are injured. I am bringing them out." What followed was something would never forget. Emerged from the gap carrying 2 cadets on her back. One was twice her size. The other was unconscious and bleeding. She carried them like they weighed nothing, her small frame somehow supporting hundreds of kilograms. She set them down gently and went back in. Again and again she returned, each time carrying more injured cadets. Her face was cut and bruised. Her clothes were torn. Blood dripped from a wound on her arm, but she did not stop. "How is she doing that?" a watching cadet whispered. Answered without looking away from the rescue. "Adrenaline. Humans can access reserves of strength when we need to protect others. It is called hysterical strength. Parents have lifted vehicles off their children. Soldiers have carried their wounded friends for miles." His voice was filled with quiet pride. "We are never stronger than when we are protecting the people we care about." The final cadet was brought out just as the chamber collapsed completely. Dust and debris exploded outward. Emergency crews rushed in to tend to the wounded. Stood in the middle of the chaos, swaying slightly. The adrenaline was fatting and her injuries were catching up with her. Reached out and steadied her with one arm. "You should rest," he said. Looked up at him with tired eyes. "Everyone is safe. Everyone is safe because of you." She nodded slowly, then let herself lean against his arm. "Good, that is good." Later, when the wounded had been treated and the chaos had settled, found sitting alone on a balcony overlooking the stars. Her arm was bandaged. Her face was clean but still showed bruises. He approached carefully, his 4 arms held close to his body in a gesture of peace. "May I sit?" he asked. "Yes." He sat beside her, his large frame taking up most of the bench. For a while, they watched the stars in silence. "3 months ago, you defeated me in 47 seconds, said finally. "I thought I was humiliated. I thought my life as a warrior was over." Said nothing, she just listened. "I was wrong," turned to look at her. That defeat was the best thing that ever happened to me. It taught me that strength is not about size or power. It is about heart, about determination, about protecting those who cannot protect themselves. You understand now, said softly. I understand, raised one hand in the gesture of brotherhood. I came to this academy believing my people were the greatest warriors in the galaxy. I was wrong. We are strong in body, but we are weak in spirit. Humans are the opposite. You are soft on the outside, but unbreakable within. Looked at his raised hand for a moment. Then she reached out and took it, wrapping her small fingers around his scaled palm. We are squad mates now, she said. That means we protect each other. Felt something warm spread through his chest. Belonging, acceptance, friendship. Yes, he agreed, we protect each other. Above them the stars burned eternal. In the distance, the sounds of the academy carried on. Life continued. But was different now. He had learned the truth that his people had never understood. Humans were not weak, they were not prey. They were the most terrifying species in the galaxy, wrapped in soft skin and gentle smiles. They would walk through fire for their friends. They would carry mountains for those they loved. They would never, ever stop. And somehow, against all odds, had become one of them. He had chosen the wrong human to challenge that first day. Or perhaps he had chosen exactly the right one.